Hi boys and girls, this is Miss Mora here, and I am here today to read you one of my absolute favorite stories. This story is called We Shall Overcome, and it's called the story of a song. And this is a very special story. It describes a song, and it talks about how this song has been so incredibly important throughout history and why this song has lasted throughout history for so long. So as we read the story today, we're going to find out why this story has lasted so long, why it has been so important throughout our history, and why it's been so important to so many people throughout history. But before we get into the story today, I do have a couple words that I want to talk to you about first. And these are words that you're going to hear in this story today and that you might even have been hearing around lately, maybe from your teachers, from your parents, or just in general. So I want to talk to you about a couple of these words. And so the first word that I want to talk to you about is this word justice. So can you repeat after me and say justice? So this is a very, very important word. This is an important word in our history. It's an important word right now. And this is an important word just for us to know, to be good and to be kind to people. And now justice is a word that means to help us figure out what is right and what is wrong. That's the first definition I want to talk about justice today. So justice is a word that just means to help us figure out what is right and what is wrong. So when we think about justice, we think, well, what is right and what is wrong? That's justice. When we're working towards justice, we're working towards figuring out what is right versus what is wrong. So when you hear people talking about justice, they're really talking about figuring out how to do what's right instead of what is wrong. So that's the first way I want to talk about justice today. But there is also another definition of justice that I want to talk about. So let's say justice one more time. Go ahead, justice. So when we talk about justice, we're also talking about when justice is working, that means that everybody feels like they are being treated equally. So remember, justice is the way that we figure out what is right and what is wrong. And when that is working, when justice is working, what's right and what is wrong is working, everybody should feel like they are being treated equally and fairly. So if we think about it, if we know what's right and we know what's wrong, everybody should be treated well and good and feel good inside and feel like they're being treated fairly, right? That would be justice. So when justice is working, everyone feels like they are being treated fairly. Justice. Now there's one more word, and it's actually the opposite of justice that I want to talk about. So when we talk about the opposite of justice, we put an I-N in front of it. Injustice. Can you say injustice? Good. So injustice is when justice is not working. When justice is not working and not everybody is being treated fairly. So when justice is not working and not everybody is being treated fairly. So if you think about it, when you're not being treated fairly, what are some of the feelings that you start to feel? You might start to feel upset. You might start to feel angry, sad, right? So when not everybody is being treated fairly and justice is not working, we call that injustice. All right. Now that we know our words justice and injustice, I want to start to read our story. So we're going to learn about some injustice over history and this story, We Shall Overcome, and the story of the song in the fight for justice. So we're going to learn about how injustice was happening in history and how people are fighting for justice using this song, We Shall Overcome. Here we go. It says, we shall overcome, we shall overcome, we shall overcome someday. All right, so in order to understand this story, we are going to have to time travel a few times. And I'll try to keep you updated on when we're time traveling. So we have to go way back in time first. And we're actually going back into the time of slavery, when there were slaves in the United States. So we're going to go way back in time, so time travel with me. And we're going back into the time of slavery. And these are the lyrics of the song. It starts with the lyrics. It says, I'll be all right, I'll be all right, I'll be all right someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that I'll be all right someday. Back in slavery times, when enslaved people worked long days with no pay and no say, no freedom and no fairness, no choice and no chance, the people sang. They suffered, yet they sang, to soothe the hurt, to fight the cruelty, to declare that yes, they were human beings. Because the slaves were not treated with justice, right? They were not treated in the right way. They were treated in the wrong way, like they were not human beings. So that was injustice. But they sang to declare that yes, they were human beings, to try and fight for justice. So we're moving forward in time now a little bit. We're not today yet, still back in time, but we're moving forward in our time travel a little bit. Here are the lyrics. I'll overcome someday, I'll overcome someday. If in my heart I do not yield, I'll overcome someday. It took a war, a civil war, to end slavery. So now we're in the time when slavery is ended, but even after that, white people treated black people as less than fully human, excluding them, ignoring them, blaming them, even attacking them, all because of the color of their skin. Black people were no longer slaves, it was true, but they were not truly free. Still they believed things would get better, and still they sang. So again, there's that injustice. They're being treated not right for the color of their skin. We will overcome, we will overcome, we will overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we will overcome someday. It wasn't easy to believe. It wasn't easy when white people shut out African Americans from good jobs, good pay, schools, libraries, restaurants, neighborhoods, train cars and bus seats, playgrounds and parks. But Black Americans and some white Americans did believe they could overcome the unfairness, the hate, and the violence. They started to protest. They brought a church song called I Will Overcome to the streets. But since they were all marching and working together, they changed the lyrics to We Will Overcome. We will overcome. So they're using the song again. All right, we're moving forward a little bit in history. I know you guys can use your imaginations. You're so smart. We're moving forward a little bit in history, and we're going to meet somebody who you are going to recognize. Remember, this is a true story of this song, so you're going to recognize this true person in history. From the streets, the song reached the ears of city people, country people, and it even reached the ears of Martin Luther King Jr., the most important leader working for justice for African Americans. Everywhere he traveled, he carried this song in his heart. The words were changed a little bit, but the spirit stayed the same. And there he is. We shall overcome, we shall overcome, we shall overcome someday. There were many forms of race hatred and many ways to fight it. Some students fought by sitting down in restaurants, because remember, there were some places where Black people were not allowed to be, and white people didn't want them there. And remember, all they wanted was that justice. They wanted to be treated fairly, right? They weren't doing anything wrong. They just went and sat down and asked for justice, to be treated fairly. The students sat and sat, waiting for hamburgers, donuts, and sodas that never came. The students sat and waited until they were arrested. And as they were taken away to jail, they sang, "We are not afraid, we are not afraid, and we are not afraid today." Here they are. The biggest gathering of people united in support of fairness and justice of African Americans took place in the nation's capital. Hundreds of thousands of people, black and white, young and old, joined hands and joined voices and sang, "We'll walk hand in hand, we'll walk hand in hand, we'll walk hand in hand someday." There's the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. That's where they marched together in protest. All right, we're moving forward a little bit in time. We're going to meet a president, not a president that was alive any time that we were alive. He was alive a long time ago. Slowly, things were changing a little bit. Laws were being passed, but race hatred still stayed strong, even stronger than the laws. So President Lyndon Johnson, that's his name, gave a speech on television, on the TV. His ancestors, so his great-great-grandparents, had once held slaves in Texas and in Georgia. But President Johnson looked out at millions of people that were watching the television and spoke of equal rights, human rights, and even voting rights for African Americans. And he recited the words of the song. So they're watching him on the television. There he is. They're watching him. And he said, "We must overcome the crippling legacy of bigotry and injustice, and we shall overcome." So he's saying we need justice to overcome the injustice. How could such a song stay in just one country? It could not. "We Shall Overcome," the song, sailed across the oceans to other countries where people faced injustice. "We will live in peace. We will live in peace. We will live in peace someday." The song traveled to India, East Germany, South Korea, Czechoslovakia, Ireland, Bangladesh, China, the Middle East, South America, where people all were working for a better life. Now we're moving forward in time again, okay? Time traveling. And here's another person you're going to recognize. Even as it spread across the globe, the song never really left its American home. It stayed. It took a very long time, but race hatred grew a little weaker. Freedom grew stronger. President Lyndon Johnson, the president from the TV before, was followed by another president and another president and another and another and another and another, until then the people of the United States, black and white, young and old, elected an African American man to be their president. You know who that is? Yeah, it's Barack Obama. On that day, people sang the song that so many voices had sung before in pain and in protest. But on that day, they sang it in happiness. "Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday." So this is the day that Barack Obama was elected president. Today, people still struggle against hatred and for freedom, against poverty and for fairness, justice, against despair and for hope. We still sing. We sing to declare that yes, we are all human beings, deserving of respect, sharing the same planet, the same future together. And that's the end of the story, and I hope that you enjoyed the story, and I hope that you enjoyed learning about the song "We Shall Overcome." and how it has traveled throughout history, how it stayed strong throughout history, and in the fight for justice and against injustice. And I hope that everyone will use your voice to fight for justice, because we all deserve to have equal rights. Bye, guys.